Welcome to a journey back in time, where the glitz and glamour of Hollywood from the 1960s to the 1990s come alive through rare, never-before-seen images. I'm your host, and over the next hour, we'll uncover fascinating facts about the biggest stars of the era, actors and actresses who defined a generation. From Elizabeth Taylor's captivating beauty to Marlon Brando's raw intensity, we'll dive into their lives, their struggles, and the moments that made them legends. So sit back and let's step into the golden age of Hollywood like never before. Ever heard of a woman whose eyes could stop time? That woman was Elizabeth Taylor, the Hollywood icon whose life was just as dramatic as the film she starred in. With violet eyes, 8 marriages, 7 husbands for children, and 2 Oscars, she wasn't just a star, she was a force of nature. Born in 1932 in London, Elizabeth was raised in Los Angeles and acting by age 9. By 12, she was already a sensation thanks to National Velvet. But unlike other child stars who faded away, Elizabeth Taylor only burned brighter with time. In the 1950s and 60s, she became the queen of Hollywood. From A Place in the Sun, Giant, and Butterfield 8 to Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, her performances weren't just powerful, they were unforgettable. Then came Cleopatra, a film drenched in gold, scandal, and history. It was there she met Richard Burton and everything changed. Their love affair shocked the world. She was married to Eddie Fisher, her 4th husband, who had left America's sweetheart Debbie Reynolds to be with her. But with Burton, it was wildfire. They married in 1964, divorced a decade later, and then married again in 1975. 2 marriages, countless headlines, and a bond that fascinated the world. In total, Elizabeth married 7 men, but 8 times. From hotel heir Conrad Hilton Jr. to British actor Michael Wilding, with whom she had 2 sons. Then came producer Mike Todd, her 3rd husband and true love, whose tragic death in a plane crash shattered her. She had 1 daughter with him, and later adopted another daughter with Richard Burton. Each husband brought a new chapter. Each love left a mark. But Elizabeth wasn't just a headline or a glamorous face. She battled addiction, endured over 30 surgeries, and fought for her health again and again. Through all of it, she remained resilient, a true survivor. And in the 1980s, she found a new purpose: the fight against HIV and AIDS. When few dared to speak out, Elizabeth stepped up. She co-founded the American Foundation for AIDS Research and later, the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. She used her fame not just for fortune, but for change. Off-screen, she was witty, bold, and unapologetically herself. She loved diamonds, perfume, and laughter. But above all, she loved deeply and fiercely. She once said, "I am a very committed wife. And I should be. I've had enough practice." Elizabeth Taylor redefined celebrity. She lived boldly, loved fiercely, and gave generously. Her eyes were violet, her life was technicolor, and her legend? Timeless. Though she passed away in 2011, Elizabeth Taylor left behind more than films. She left behind a story of passion, perseverance, and power, one that will be told for generations. Because icons don't fade, they shine forever. Ever heard of an actor who didn't just perform, but revolutionized acting itself? That man was Marlon Brando, the original rebel, the method actor, and the enigma who reshaped the very soul of cinema. Born in 1924 in Omaha, Nebraska, Brando's childhood was stormy, with a troubled home and a restless spirit. But that same restlessness would one day light a fire in Hollywood. He studied under Stella Adler, where he learned the method, not just acting, but becoming. And when he hit Broadway, people noticed. Then came A Streetcar Named Desire, and everything changed. In 1951, the world met Stanley Kowalski, raw, brutal, magnetic. Brando didn't act. He exploded. Suddenly, Hollywood looked different. Acting wasn't just polished and poised, it was real. From On the Waterfront to The Wild One, Brando became the voice of a generation. Tough, unpredictable, and utterly human. And when he said, "I could have been a contender," the world believed him. But Brando wasn't chasing fame. He despised the Hollywood machine. He turned down roles, challenged studios, and often sabotaged his own success. To him, Truth mattered more than popularity. In 1972, just when critics thought he was finished, Brando returned with The Godfather. As Don Vito Corleone, he was quiet, controlled, legendary. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a masterclass. He won his second Oscar, but didn't accept it. Instead, he sent Native American activist Sachin Littlefeather to decline the award, protesting Hollywood's treatment of indigenous people. Brando wasn't just a rebel on screen. He was one in real life. He had many loves, many relationships, and many children, 11 in total. But his personal life was often filled with pain. Tragedy struck when his daughter Cheyenne struggled with mental health, and his son Christian was convicted of manslaughter. Brando carried that grief for the rest of his life. Behind the fame was a complex man, brilliant, insecure, fiercely private. He was a lover of justice, a fighter for civil rights, and a man haunted by the very industry that made him a legend. In later years, he retreated from the spotlight. He gained weight, turned down roles, and chose isolation over applause. But when he did appear in Apocalypse Now, Last Tango in Paris, or even The Score, that fire still burned. Marlon Brando wasn't perfect. He was chaotic, difficult, and often misunderstood. But he changed everything. He showed the world that acting could be felt, not faked. That vulnerability was more powerful than heroism. And that one man, raw and real, could shake an entire industry. Brando died in 2004, but his influence? It's everywhere. Every actor who dares to dig deeper echoes Brando. Every performance that feels too real to be scripted owes him a debt. Because Marlon Brando didn't just act. He transformed acting. And legends like him never really leave. Some stars dazzle with power. Audrey Hepburn enchanted with grace. She wasn't just beautiful. She was elegance personified. But behind those doe eyes and timeless charm was a woman of steel spirit and silent strength. Born in Belgium in 1929, Audrey's childhood was far from glamorous. During World War II, she lived under Nazi occupation in the Netherlands. She suffered hunger, fear, and the horrors of war, and yet that quiet resilience would stay with her forever. After the war, she dreamed of being a ballerina, but life had other plans. She turned to acting, and with one role, she captured the world. In Roman Holiday, she played a runaway princess, wide-eyed, delicate, and unforgettable. Audiences didn't just watch Audrey Hepburn, they fell in love. She won an Oscar for her first leading role, and just like that, a legend was born. She wasn't the typical Hollywood starlet. Slim, elegant, with short hair and a shy smile, she brought a new kind of beauty to the screen. A beauty of warmth, wit, and wonder. From Sabrina to Funny Face, from My Fair Lady to the iconic Breakfast at Tiffany's, Audrey became the face of timeless style. That black dress, those pearls, that cigarette holder. She didn't just play Holly Golightly, she defined her. But Audrey's life was much more than fashion and film. She married twice, first to actor Mel Ferrer, then to Italian psychiatrist Andrea Ditti. She had 2 sons, Sean and Luca, and to them, she wasn't a movie star, she was simply mom. After stepping away from Hollywood in the 1970s, she devoted herself to what truly mattered, helping others. In the 1980s and 90s, she became a Goodwill ambassador for UNICEF. She traveled the world, from Ethiopia to Bangladesh, holding starving children, raising awareness, and giving a voice to the forgotten. She once said, "People, even more than things, have to be restored, renewed, revived, reclaimed." Audrey lived by those words. Even as her own health declined, she continued to serve. In 1993, she passed away from cancer, quietly, gracefully, just as she had lived. But Audrey Hepburn didn't disappear. She became immortal. Every woman who wears a little black dress echoes Audrey. Every smile that carries kindness over glamour honors her spirit. Every child helped through UNICEF carries a piece of her legacy. She once said, "For beautiful eyes, look for the good in others. For beautiful lips, speak only words of kindness. And for poise, walk with the knowledge that you are never alone." Audrey Hepburn didn't just act. She inspired. And long after the lights fade, true elegance remains. Because Audrey was never just a star. She was a light, and some lights never go out. Some actors play heroes. Paul Newman was one, both on and off the screen. With piercing blue eyes, effortless charm, and a rebellious soul, he was Hollywood royalty. But beyond the fame, Newman was a racer, a lover, a philanthropist, and a man of quiet depth. Born in 1925 in Shaker Heights, Ohio, Paul didn't come from glamour. He served in the Navy during World War II, then studied acting under Lee Strasberg, alongside Brando and James Dean. But Newman was different. Less tortured, more grounded. Still waters that ran deep. His breakout role came in Somebody Up There Likes Me, but it was the hustler that made him a legend. Fast Eddie Felson, cocky, smooth, and wounded, was Newman at his best. He wasn't just handsome. He was real. From Cool Hand Luke to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Paul gave us rebels with heart. He was tough, but never cruel. Flawed, but deeply human. He paired perfectly with Robert Redford, two legends, two friends, two unforgettable films. Whether robbing trains or bluffing in The Sting, Newman made mischief look noble. Off-screen, his life was equally rich. He married actress Joanne Woodward in 1958, and their love story became one of Hollywood's rarest, loyal, lasting, and true. Together, they raised 3 daughters. Paul also had 3 children from his first marriage, including his only son, Scott, who tragically died of a drug overdose. That loss changed Newman forever, but he turned grief into purpose. He founded the Scott Newman Foundation to combat drug abuse. Then, in 1982, he launched Newman's Own, a food brand that gave 100% of its profits to charity. The idea started with salad dressing and grew into a global force. To date, Newman's Own has donated over $500 million. And he didn't stop there. He co-founded Hole in the Wall Gang Camp, a place where seriously ill children could feel joy and freedom. To them, he wasn't a movie star. He was just Paul, a man who cared. He also had a need for speed, literally. Newman was an accomplished race car driver, competing into his 70s. He even won his class at the 24 Hours of Daytona. Hollywood legend by day, racing legend by weekend. Paul Newman wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. But his legacy is louder than any headline. 10 Oscar nominations. 1 win. A Jean Hearst Holt Humanitarian Award. And more importantly, millions of lives touched quietly, generously, and with grace. He passed away in 2008, leaving behind not just movies, but meals for the hungry, hope for the sick, and a blueprint for what it means to be good. Paul Newman once said, "I just want to be remembered as a guy who tried to be part of his times, tried to help people communicate with each other, tried to find some decency in his own life." He didn't just try, he succeeded. Because Paul Newman wasn't just a movie star. He was a man of substance. And his story is one worth remembering forever. Some stars follow the script. Shirley MacLaine ripped it up and wrote her own. Actress, dancer, rebel, believer. She wasn't just a Hollywood legend. She was a soul on a cosmic journey. Born in 1934 in Richmond, Virginia, Shirley started as a ballet dancer. A broken ankle shifted her path from the stage to the screen. But as fate would have it, that twist led her to destiny. She burst onto the scene in The Trouble with Harry, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Fresh, quirky, and impossible to ignore. But it was the apartment that made her unforgettable. Playing Fran Kubelik, the elevator girl with a broken heart, Shirley gave vulnerability a new kind of strength. She was funny, real, sad, smart, and she made it look effortless. In a world of glamour and pretense, Shirley was different. She didn't pretend, she felt, and she made you feel too. She went on to shine in classics like Irma La Douce, Sweet Charity, and Terms of Endearment, the role that finally won her the Academy Award. Through every part, she was unfiltered, unpredictable, and unforgettably human. Off-screen, she was even bolder. In an industry that prized obedience, Shirley spoke her mind. She challenged directors, rejected stereotypes, and refused to be put in a box. She only married once, to businessman Steve Parker, and had one daughter, Sachi. But traditional roles were never her style. Because Shirley wasn't just acting in this life. She was exploring it. Deeply. Spiritually. She spoke openly about past lives, reincarnation, UFOs, and the metaphysical long before it was cool or acceptable. Critics rolled their eyes. She smiled and kept going. She wrote best-selling books about her spiritual beliefs, including Out on a Limb, which became a cultural phenomenon. Where others followed trends, Shirley followed truth. Her truth. She wasn't afraid to laugh at herself either. That humor, that honesty, it made her not just respected, but loved. Through it all, the films, the fame's backlash, Shirley never lost her spark. She danced through life with curiosity, courage, and a little cosmic wonder. Now in her 90s, she's still here. Still wise. Still wild. Still wonderfully Shirley. And still reminding us, life isn't about perfection. It's about evolution. She once said, "I think we're here to learn lessons. And I think Earth is one of the toughest schools in the universe." Maybe that's true. But if so, Shirley MacLaine is graduating with honors. Because she didn't just entertain us. She challenged us to think deeper, dream bigger, and live freer. Shirley MacLaine wasn't just a star. She's a seeker, a storyteller, and a soul that continues to shine beyond the screen and beyond this life. Some actors entertain, some inspire, but Sidney Poitier, he changed the course of history with grace, strength, and quiet revolution. Born in 1927 in Miami, Florida, quite by accident, while his Bahamian parents were visiting the U.S., Sidney entered the world a premature baby who wasn't expected to survive. But he did, and what a life he lived. He grew up in the Bahamas, barefoot, poor, with no electricity or running water. At 15, he moved to America, illiterate, with just a few dollars in his pocket and a dream no one believed in. He washed dishes in Harlem, taught himself to read using newspapers, and began chasing the impossible, acting. When he first auditioned, he was laughed off the stage. His accent was too thick. His grammar was broken. His presence? Undeniable. He trained. He fought to be heard. And in 1950, he broke through with no way out, playing a black doctor treating a white racist. It was bold. It was dangerous. It was Sidney Poitier, refusing to play stereotypes, even if it meant losing roles. In 1958, the Defiant Ones earned him an Oscar nomination, the first ever for a black man. But he was just getting started. Then came Lilies of the Field in 1963, and history was made. Sidney Poitier became the first black man to win the Academy Award for Best Actor. It wasn't just a win for him. It was a win for every child told they don't belong, for every artist locked out of the room, for every soul yearning to be seen. But Poitier didn't stop at trophies. He used his voice to challenge, to uplift, and to lead. In the middle of the civil rights movement, he starred in roles that shattered boundaries, not with rage, but with reason, to serve with love. Guess who's coming to dinner? In the heat of the night, he played teachers, detectives, doctors, men of dignity and strength. He demanded to be taken seriously. And in doing so, he demanded it for everyone who looked like him. He became the first black man to be a true box office star, not just admired, but adored. But his impact wasn't limited to the screen. He marched with Dr. King. He stood beside Harry Belafonte and raised money for civil rights causes. He knew the power of being the first, and he never took it lightly. His personal life was just as full. He was married twice, first to Juanita Hardy, then to Canadian actress Joanna Shimkus, with whom he shared a deep, decades-long bond. In total, he had 6 daughters, and he often said his proudest role was father. In the 1990s, Sidney took on a new stage, diplomacy. He served as the Bahamian ambassador to Japan and continued speaking around the world about equality, culture, and the power of integrity. Over his lifetime, he received every honor imaginable: the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Kennedy Center Honor, a Lifetime Achievement Oscar, and, perhaps most beautifully, the love and admiration of generations. But Sidney never let ego take root. He remained humble, reflective, and deeply spiritual. He once said, "I had to prove that I could carry the weight of who I represented." I couldn't fail. If I did, I wouldn't just fail for me, I'd fail for them. He carried that weight, and he carried it with honor. When he passed away in 2022 at the age of 94, the world mourned not just a brilliant actor, but a bridge builder, a barrier breaker, a man who chose character over comfort. Sidney Poitier didn't just change Hollywood. He changed what Hollywood could be. Because of him, doors opened. Because of him, roles expanded. Because of him, young artists dared to dream higher. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. His presence was powerful enough. Sidney Poitier was more than a star. He was a light, and lights like his never go out. Some stars shine. Jane Fonda Burns, actress, activist, icon, survivor. Her story isn't just one of fame, it's of transformation. Born in 1937 into Hollywood royalty, the daughter of legendary actor Henry Fonda, Jane seemed destined for the screen. But even from a young age, she knew her journey wouldn't be a quiet one. Her childhood was marked by loss and distance. Her mother died by suicide when Jane was just 12. Her father, though brilliant, was emotionally distant. So Jane learned early how to perform, not just on screen, but in life. She studied acting under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio in New York, where she unlocked something powerful, not just a talent, but a voice. And in the 1960s, she lit up the screen with roles that were bold, raw, and unforgettable. From Cat Ballou to Barbarella, she went from comic cowgirl to space-age sex symbol. But Jane Fonda was never just what the camera saw. She was thinking, watching, awakening, and then she changed. As the Vietnam War raged, Jane found her purpose not just in film, but in protest. She stood on the front lines of the anti-war movement, risking her career, her reputation, and everything she'd built. She was called a traitor. She was labeled Hanoi Jane. But beneath the headlines was a woman who believed in justice, who couldn't stay silent while the world burned. She once said, "You can't stay neutral on a moving train." And Jane Fonda? She was never neutral. She continued acting through the turbulence and got even better. She won 2 Academy Awards. For Clute, playing a call girl with haunting depth, and Coming Home, a powerful portrayal of love and trauma in the shadow of war. Through the 70s and 80s, she became a voice for women, in film, in politics, and in fitness. Yes, fitness. In 1982, she released Jane Fonda's Workout, a cultural phenomenon that sold millions of copies and reshaped how a generation of women viewed their bodies. But it wasn't just about aerobics, it was about empowerment. She wasn't done transforming. Behind the scenes, Jane battled bulimia, insecurity, failed marriages, and self-doubt. She married 3 times, to director Roger Vadim, activist Tom Hayden, and billionaire Ted Turner. Each chapter shaped her. Each struggle strengthened her. And then, in her 60s and beyond, Jane Fonda re-emerged. Stronger, clearer, fiercer. She returned to acting, dazzling a new generation in films and TV, from Monster-in-Law to Grace and Frankie. At an age when Hollywood forgets women, Jane stood taller than ever, and her activism never stopped. From environmental justice to women's rights to climate change, she marched, she got arrested, and she kept showing up. At over 80 years old, she launched Fire Drill Fridays, protesting climate inaction. Rain or shine, handcuffs and all. She beat cancer. She beat stereotypes. And she beat the idea that age dims the flame. Jane Fonda isn't just a survivor. She's a fighter. A woman who remade herself again and again, not to please the world, but to confront it. She once said, "It's never too late to start over, never too late to be happy." And when you look at Jane's life, that truth echoes loud and clear. She was born into the spotlight, but she earned every inch of her legacy, not just through talent, but through truth. Because Jane Fonda is more than a star. She's a storm, a fire, and a force that still burns, for change, for justice, and for what matters. Some actors capture hearts. Robert Redford captured eras. With his golden hair, thoughtful gaze, and quiet strength. He wasn't just a movie star. He was America's conscience in a cowboy hat. Born in 1936 in Santa Monica, California, Charles Robert Redford Jr. didn't grow up rich. He lost his mother as a teenager, a wound that left him adrift. He drank, he wandered, he even got kicked out of college. But behind the rebellion was a restless mind searching for meaning. He found it in art. He found it in storytelling. And eventually, he found it on stage. Redford trained in New York, earned his stripes in theater, and by the 1960s, started appearing on screen, lean, sharp, unforgettable. But it was 1969 that changed everything. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Alongside Paul Newman, Redford was electric, charming, sly, and soulful. That film didn't just launch a career. It launched a legend. In the 1970s, he defined the thoughtful leading man, the candidate, the way we were. 3 Days of the Condor, All the President's Men. Each role, political, poetic, or romantic, showed a different layer of the man beneath the charm. He had the looks of a matinee idol, but the soul of a revolutionary. And he used that soul not just to act, but to shape Hollywood. In 1980, he directed his first film, Ordinary People. It won him the Academy Award for Best Director. Not bad for a pretty boy everyone underestimated. But Redford was never in it for the applause. In 1981, he founded the Sundance Institute, a home for independent filmmakers, outsiders, visionaries. He gave unknown voices a platform and changed cinema forever. Because of Redford, filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, Steven Soderbergh, and Chloe Zhao got their first shot. He didn't just open doors. He built entire rooms for others to walk into. Off-screen, Redford was always drawn to the land, to nature, to silence, to truth. A passionate environmentalist, he fought for conservation long before it was popular. He wasn't loud, he just did the work. He married twice. First to historian Lola Van Wagenen, with whom he had 4 children. Later to artist Sibylle Sagers, a creative partner who shared his love for the earth and its stories. His life was marked by tragedy, too, including the heartbreaking loss of his infant son. But like every character he played, Redford moved forward with quiet resilience. He aged gracefully, never chasing youth, never clinging to the spotlight. From the natural to a river runs through it, from the hoarse whisperer to all is lost, Redford kept evolving. And when he announced his retirement from acting in 2018 with The Old Man and the Gun, it felt right. A perfect bow to a legendary journey. A thief with charm, stealing one last scene. He once said, "The measure of a man is how he handles adversity, not how he enjoys success." By that measure, Robert Redford stands tall. Not just as a movie star, not just as a director, but as a builder of dreams, a defender of the wild, and a guardian of stories. He didn't shout, he whispered. But the world listened. Because Robert Redford isn't just a chapter in Hollywood's story. He's a whole volume, filled with beauty, rebellion, and the courage to go his own way. Some actors change roles. Meryl Streep becomes them. With every character, every glance, every whisper, she reinvents herself and reminds us what true acting is. Born in 1949 in Summit, New Jersey, Mary Louise Streep showed early signs of brilliance. From childhood, she loved to mimic, to perform, to dive deep into other lives. But even then, it was clear, this was no ordinary talent. She trained rigorously, earning a degree from Vassar, then honing her craft at Yale Drama School. And from the start, Meryl wasn't interested in just playing parts. She wanted to live them. Her breakthrough came with The Deer Hunter in 1978, and soon after, Kramer vs. Kramer won her the first of 3 Academy Awards. But awards alone don't tell the story. From Sophie's Choice, where her heartbreaking portrayal of a Holocaust survivor stunned the world, to The Iron Lady, where she transformed into Margaret Thatcher with uncanny precision. Meryl's acting is chameleon-like, fearless, and deeply human. She has been nominated for more Oscars than any other actor, a staggering 21 times. But it's not about numbers. It's about dedication. Meryl Streep is known for her extraordinary ability to master accents, mannerisms, and emotions. She disappears into her roles, from a humble housewife to a powerful CEO, from a singer battling cancer in Ricky and the flash to a queen ruling with iron will. Her range is limitless, and so is her commitment. But beyond the glitz and glamour, Meryl is a fierce advocate for women's rights, for artists, for truth. She uses her platform wisely, speaking out on social issues with courage and grace. Her personal life is a portrait of balance. Married to sculptor Don Gummer since 1978, they have 4 children, and through it all, Meryl has managed to keep her family grounded amidst Hollywood's storm. She once said, "The great gift of human beings is that we have the power of empathy." And through every role, she gifts us that empathy, asking us to see the world through another's eyes. Meryl Streep's legacy is not just about talent. It's about work ethic, integrity, and the relentless pursuit of truth in art. She isn't just an actress. She's a master storyteller. And in every story she tells, she invites us to understand, to feel, and to grow. Meryl Streep didn't just conquer Hollywood. She elevated it. Because she reminds us, acting is not about being famous. It's about being real. And that is a performance that never fades. Some actors play it safe. Jack Nicholson tore the rulebook apart, with that mischievous grin, wild eyes, and a laugh that could chill or charm. He became Hollywood's ultimate iconoclast. Born in 1937 in Neptune City, New Jersey, Jack's early life was a mystery even to him. Raised believing his grandmother was his mother, and his mother was his sister. A secret kept for decades that only added to his mystique. He found escape and expression in acting. Starting out with small roles, low-budget films, and theater, Nicholson's talent was unmistakable, but his path was anything but smooth. His breakthrough came with Easy Rider in 1969, a counterculture classic that announced a new kind of star. Jack was fearless, edgy, and electrifying. Then came 5 Easy Pieces, a haunting story of a man lost between worlds. Nicholson's raw intensity earned him his first Oscar nomination and made audiences sit up and take notice. Over the next decades, he became a chameleon, effortlessly shifting from dark, disturbed characters to wild, comedic rebels. Chinatown, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Shining, Batman. Each role unforgettable, each performance layered with complexity. He won 3 Academy Awards, 2 for Best Actor and 1 for Best Supporting Actor. But his legacy is far bigger than trophies. Jack Nicholson defined cool, not by looks or charm, but by attitude. He was the guy who broke rules, challenged authority, and laughed in the face of convention. Off-screen, he was as enigmatic as on. Known for his wild lifestyle, famous relationships, and love of basketball, Nicholson lived on his own terms, never compromising, never conforming. His love life was legendary, including high-profile relationships with Angelica Houston, Michelle Phillips, and Lara Flynn Boyle. But he also kept his private life fiercely guarded. Despite the madness and myth, Nicholson was deeply committed to his craft. He approached every role with a rare blend of discipline and spontaneity, creating characters that felt lived in and real. He once said, "The minute that you're not learning, I think you're dead." And he kept learning, reinventing himself through decades of Hollywood's ever-changing landscape. Nicholson's iconic grin, that half-smile full of mischief and menace, became a symbol of rebellion, genius, and unpredictability. Though he has stepped back from acting in recent years, his influence is undeniable. He paved the way for antiheroes, complex leads, and fearless performances that continue to inspire. Jack Nicholson isn't just a legend. He's a force of nature, wild, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Because with Jack, it wasn't just about acting. It was about living the story on his own terms, and with that unforgettable laugh echoing behind him. Some stars shine with glamour. Diane Keaton shines with authenticity. With her trademark hat, quirky smile, and timeless charm, she rewrote the rules of what it means to be a leading lady. Born in 1946 in Los Angeles, Diane Hall grew up surrounded by music, dance, and a loving family that encouraged creativity. From an early age, she dreamed of the stage, not just to perform, but to express. She studied theater and made her Broadway debut in the late 1960s, quickly catching the attention of Hollywood's finest. Her breakthrough came with The Godfather in 1972 as Kay Adams, the poised yet complicated love interest to Michael Corleone. Diane brought grace and strength to the role, laying the foundation for a remarkable career. But it was her collaboration with director Woody Allen that truly defined her style and spirit. Annie Hall in 1977 wasn't just a film. It was a revolution. Diane's quirky, tomboyish charm in Annie Hall challenged Hollywood's idea of femininity. She wasn't a glamorous goddess. She was real, awkward, funny, and utterly captivating. That role won her an Academy Award for Best Actress and changed how women were seen on screen. Through the decades, Diane continued to choose roles that celebrated complexity and humor. From Manhattan to Baby Boom, Something's Gotta Give to The First Wives Club. She showed us that aging is not a curse, but a story full of wit, wisdom, and style. Off-screen, Diane Keaton is just as iconic. Known for her unique fashion sense, the hats, the suits, the androgynous flair, she became a symbol of individuality and confidence. Her personal life has been one of independence and exploration. She's never married, but is a devoted mother and grandmother, embracing family on her own terms. Diane has also been a passionate advocate for architecture and design, even publishing books celebrating her love for historic homes and interiors. She once said, "I think that women are very different from men in that we're allowed to be vulnerable, and that's a great strength." And that vulnerability, paired with fierce humor, is what makes Diane Keaton unforgettable. She's not just a star. She's a trailblazer, proving that you don't have to fit the mold to be a leading lady. Diane's career is a celebration of being yourself in a world that wants you to conform. She reminds us that charm comes from authenticity, and that true style is timeless. Through laughter, love, and a little bit of rebellion, Diane Keaton carved a space in Hollywood that is uniquely hers, and a legacy that will inspire generations to come. Some actors command a room. Al Pacino owns it, with fiery intensity, raw emotion, and a voice that echoes through cinema history. He's more than an actor. He's a force of nature. Born in 1940 in East Harlem, New York City, Alfredo James Pacino grew up in a tough neighborhood, surrounded by grit and struggle. From a young age, he was drawn to the arts, a way to escape, to express, to transform. He trained at the famed Actors Studio under Lee Strasberg, where method acting became his foundation. Pacino didn't just play characters, he became them. His breakthrough came with A Panic in Needle Park in 1971, but the world took notice with The Godfather in 1972. As Michael Corleone, Pacino embodied the transformation from innocent outsider to ruthless mafia boss with such depth and subtlety. It changed Hollywood forever. His performance was electric, earning him his first Oscar nomination and launching a legendary career. Through the 70s and beyond, Al Pacino took on roles that demanded everything, from Serpico to Dog Day Afternoon, Scarface to Scent of a Woman. His characters were often outsiders, rebels, or complex anti-heroes, raw, flawed, and unforgettable. In 1993, he finally won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his role as the blind, irascible Colonel Frank Slade in Scent of a Woman, a victory decades in the making. Off-screen, Pacino is famously private, a man who lets his work speak louder than words. He's been married twice, with relationships that reflect the same intensity he brings to the screen. His dedication to theater remains strong, directing and performing on Broadway, nurturing his roots even as Hollywood embraced him. He once said, "In acting, honesty is everything. If you can fake that, you've got it made." For Pacino, honesty isn't a trick. It's a relentless pursuit of truth in every role. His voice, his stare, his energy, they cut through the screen and lodge deep in the audience's soul. Al Pacino is not just an actor. He's a living legend, a man who defined an era and continues to inspire generations. Because with Pacino, every line, every glance, every breath carries the weight of 1,000 stories. And that fire behind his eyes? It's a blaze that never fades. Some actors break molds. Sigourney Weaver shattered them. With her commanding presence, fierce intelligence, and fearless spirit, she redefined what it means to be a leading woman in Hollywood. Born in 1949 in New York City, Susan Alexandra Weaver grew up in an artistic family. Her father a director, her mother an actress. From an early age, Sigourney was drawn to the stage, studying drama at Stanford and later at Yale School of Drama. Her breakthrough came in 1979 with Alien, a film that changed science fiction forever. As Ellen Ripley, Weaver portrayed a strong, smart, and resilient heroine who refused to be a damsel in distress. Ripley was a revelation, a character that inspired generations and became an icon of female empowerment in cinema. Sigourney didn't stop there. She took on diverse roles, from the ambitious Dana Barrett in Ghostbusters to the complex Dr. Grace Augustine in Avatar. Her performances have earned multiple Academy Award nominations, reflecting her versatility and depth. Beyond the screen, Weaver is known for her intelligence and activism, a passionate advocate for environmental causes and human rights. She uses her fame to speak for those without a voice. She's married to stage director Jim Simpson, and together they've balanced art, family, and activism with grace. She once said, "I don't want to be a star. I want to be an actor who keeps growing." And grow she did, evolving from genre-defining roles to powerful dramatic performances. Sigourney Weaver is not just an actress. She is a trailblazer who paved the way for strong women in film. Her career is a testament to courage, resilience, and the power of breaking barriers. With every role, she invites us to see the world through a new lens, fierce, thoughtful, and unapologetically bold. Sigourney Weaver's legacy is not just about the characters she played. It's about the strength she brought to every story. And in that strength, she remains unforgettable. We've journeyed through 3 decades of Hollywood magic, from the 1960s to the 1990s, uncovering rare images and untold stories of the stars who shaped an era. These actors and actresses weren't just icons. They were trailblazers, rebels, and dreamers. Which story surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video for more rare Hollywood gems. Until next time, keep dreaming in Technicolor.